Books, books. I like books. I'm gonna read them all.
Hi readers, Chris here. Welcome to my channel where I review fantasy, Stephen King, all sorts of books. And today I'm going to be talking about Bag of Bones by Stephen King. Yes, that's right. I didn't count before I started this video, but this is either my 38th, 39th Stephen King book. It could be 40. I don't know. I'll have to check. But yes, Bag of Bones was the most recent book that I read. And this one was just okay for me. I'm going to tell you why. So first, let's start with the setup of this book, if you're not familiar. So Bag of Bones features this 40-year-old guy. He's an author, but he hasn't been able to write since his wife passed away. His wife passed away a couple years ago, and he hasn't been the same since. So he goes out to his summer cabin to escape, and while he's there, he finds this little girl lost in the road. He kind of scoops her up like, oh my God, I don't want you to get hit by a car. And there's a young mother, 20-year-old girl that's like, oh my God, you found my daughter. Thank you so, so much. And then it turns out that this young girl is in this custody battle because the father of the daughter has passed away, and the father's family is this rich, oligarch family. They're trying to take the kid away from her, and the whole town is in on this drama. There's ghosts involved. Honestly, even speaking about it out loud, it's kind of like a bit of a convoluted story, if I'm being honest. So on one hand, we have our author character who is plagued at his lake house here with visions of ghosts. He thinks it might be his dead wife come back to tell him to help the young mother and her child. But then there's these other ghosts that have to do with the history of the town and the evil rich guy and their kind of history. So it's a very odd story. It's kind of a convoluted one, and I had a bit of a hard time getting into this one. So there's not really much world building to talk about other than this is one of those Stephen King stories that kind of takes place in a contained town. So you think of his classic tales like It, all the stories that take place in Derry, Maine. There is a town here, and this town has a history, and the history is not great. This town has a history where things have happened in the past that have really been horrific. I honestly wish the story had dove into that more, because I feel like the parts where the ghosts of the town kind of reappear, I feel like they don't have a ton to do with what's going on in present day. Yes, there is the ghost because allegedly, and I guess this is kind of a spoiler, but it doesn't really spoil anything in the story. So there is the ghost of a young black boy who was drowned in the lake. And now we have this young girl, this young white girl who is in this custody battle. I don't feel like those two things are the same, but the book tries to make a connection between young kid that died and young girl that's going through this trauma, I guess. But I don't know. I felt like that connection, I felt like the book was trying really hard to make this connection, but I feel like it didn't work for me. It didn't work for me. Racist old town and being horrible to black people doesn't have anything to do with what's going on in current day. At least that's the way that I felt. Now let's talk about the characters, because the characters are usually what I really love about King books. And I do have to say that the book does do a really good job getting into the main character's head. We really learn a lot about him. We learn about his whole life, his relationship with his wife, his hopes and dreams, how he writes, his process of writing, what he writes. We really learn a lot about him. But unfortunately, what we learned, I didn't particularly like. And the thing that I liked least of all is that this grown man, and he's described as being in his 40s, when he meets the mother of the child, she's only like 20, 21, and he's in his 40s. And the way that he lusts after this young girl, I found really off-putting. Now, the book makes it seem like they have a consensual relationship later on in the book, and that's fine. Two people that are 20 years apart absolutely can have a consensual relationship. Like, they can. But there's just something about the way that it's written. He has these fantasies about her that I just found really, I don't know, I just found really off-putting. Maybe it's because I'm older now and a lot of my friends have young children and young girls, but just like thinking about such an older guy, just like having these lustful fantasies about a young girl, I don't know, it just kind of gave me the ick. You know what I mean? It just gave me the ick. And even later in the book, when the mother is kind of like coming on to him, like she's interested in him in a romantic way, I don't know. I didn't buy it. I didn't believe it. And I didn't like it. And then when it comes to the plot, like I mentioned, this plot was just really convoluted for me. Like on the surface, it's like a straightforward plot. Author, old guy, wife died, and now he's helping a young mother whose husband died, like save her daughter. But then it really just devolves into this weird ghost story that made no sense to me. And I honestly wish that the ghost story was like the A plot line, and then the custody battle for the young girl was like the B plot line. But in the book, it's actually the opposite. The custody battle is the A storyline, and the ghost story is the B storyline, which I find really weird because on the back of the book, it says a haunted love story. And like I said, like, I feel like the hauntings didn't really take center stage. So at least that was just my impression. Someone else could read it and have a totally different experience than I did. So yeah, clearly this is not my favorite Stephen King book. Definitely not the best one that I've read recently. I don't want to say that it's the worst Stephen King book I've ever read. I've definitely read ones that are worse. But were I to do a ranking, this would probably be in the bottom. There were good parts to it. There were some parts that were interesting. It's just overall, this one did not really work for me. I will just say, to be fair, I do know other people that have read this one and have liked it. So I would love to know from you. Have you read Bag of Bones? If you did you like it? Let me know in the comments why. If not, that's okay. I'm saying you can skip this one because there are much better King books out there. So that is all for me today, all my thoughts on A Bag of Bones. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to my channel for more bookish stuff coming your way soon. All right, everyone, happy reading.